EU. And I should now like to give the floor to Commissioner Svitsa.
Good morning, everybody, dear colleagues, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for providing the opportunity to follow up on the debate which we had on the 7th October and to address the major developments which took place in the meantime. As you know, the situation is evolving rapidly, yet it remains deeply fragile, in particular with regards to the ongoing dynamics in Gaza and its broader implications for the Middle East. In that context, what can be the role of the EU? I'm aware that some of you, dear members, are traveling to Israel and Palestine next week, and I very much welcome your engagement. The Gaza conflict remains at the heart of regional politics. Despite the recent ceasefire and the hostage release deal between Israel and Hamas, the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains catastrophic. The first phase of the agreement has shown promising signs with the release of hostages and political prisoners. This is a major achievement and an immense relief for their families. However, we must see the tangible progress on three critical fronts. First, the full release also of all deceased hostages, the withdrawal of the Israeli army along the agreed lines, and the substantial and unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The European Union is uniquely positioned to play a pivotal role in this delicate situation. We stand ready to contribute to the comprehensive 20-point plan aimed at stabilizing the region, whilst also continuing to engage both with the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli government. First, the European Union can play a crucial role in supporting Gaza through immediate and large-scale humanitarian aid working through key partners. This involves increasing aid deliveries via the humanitarian air bridge and exploring all access routes, including the Cyprus corridor. Additionally, we can scale up medical evacuations of Palestinian patients to Europe through the EU civil protection mechanism. We can also consider deploying European civil protection resources to support critical operations such as search and rescue, rubble removal, and decontamination. In the humanitarian context, the European Union will remain a steadfast supporter of the United Nations and its agencies. In fact, United Nations presence is indispensable to achieving immediate humanitarian relief. But we also need the European Union, we also need the United Nations to transition from emergency assistance to comprehensive recovery and overall stabilization in view of supporting and empowering Palestinian institutions. Secondly, the European Union has the tools to support security arrangements. The mission EUBAM Rafah is ready to redeploy and ensure a third-party presence at the Rafah crossing point. EUPOL COPS could consider extending police training activities further to Gaza. We are also assessing the ways to finance and provide expertise for disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. However, this needs to be rooted in a clear political process. Thirdly, we have a keen interest to contribute to governance arrangements. We explore membership in the Board of Peace Oversight Body, while we can also provide technical support to the Technocratic Palestinian Committee. Governance also comprises the reform of the Palestinian Authority that we would like to jointly monitor via the newly established Palestine Donor Group, to which I'll come back later. On governance issues, the European Union has also been consistently clear on the need for a role of the Palestinian Authority in the future of Gaza. Fourth, on reconstruction. President von der Leyen announced in her State of the Union speech here a dedicated support package for Gaza's recovery and reconstruction. The Commission is currently evaluating options given the rapidly evolving situation on the ground. Dear colleagues, let me assure you that the European Union remains steadfast in its support for the two-state solution. Providing a clear political horizon for the Palestinians is not just a matter of immediate necessity, but is crucial for the successful implementation of a peace plan. In this respect, the European Union will take forward the work of the Global Alliance based on its renewed mandate at UNGA in follow-up to the New York Declaration. On our side, we will mobilize all relevant Commission tools at our disposal. And we will start with the first meeting of the Palestine Donor Group soon, around the date of 20th November, jointly with the Palestinian Authority. We hope in the margins of the next Foreign Affairs Council in November. This Palestine Donor Group will serve a twofold objective. First, to establish a platform for the Palestine Authority to present the implementation of its reforms agenda and attract more donors and regional partners. And second, to coordinate efforts for Gaza's recovery and reconstruction once conditions allow. In conclusion, the Middle East stands at a critical juncture, as all of us know. While the recent developments in Gaza offer glimmers of hope, sustained and concerted efforts are required to ensure lasting peace. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to your exchange. Thank you so much.
Herzlichen Dank, Frau Kommissarin. Für die EVP-Fraktion spricht nun der Kollege McAllister.
Madam President, Madam Commissioner, for 1 week there is renewed hope for a genuine, lasting peace in the Middle East. But hope alone will not sustain peace. There are many actors determined to sabotage this process, first and foremost the terror organization Hamas itself. Indeed, Hamas attacks on Palestinian civilians and its refusal to disarm make the ceasefire increasingly fragile. What the region needs now is our engagement, and what the European Union must offer is a united Middle East strategy. We ought to focus our energy where Europe can make a real difference. Let us work with regional partners to reinforce and deliver humanitarian aid as quickly as possible. Let us support key regional actors, the United States, the Gulf states, and Israel's Arab neighbors in securing the ceasefire. The willingness of several Arab countries to commit themselves politically, financially, and diplomatically is in itself a breakthrough. Let us counter those who thrive on instability, for example, Iran, and ensure that opponents to peace cannot derail it. Let us keep the prospect of a negotiated two-state solution alive, however distant it may seem today. And above all, let us resist the temptation to divide ourselves further. We must focus on the common denominator that unites us, our unwavering commitment to peace. Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Maniatis for the S&D Group.
Colleagues, the ceasefire agreement and the release of hostages after 2 years was a key condition, but peace still has to be built. Over the last 2 weeks, we have seen how fragile this ceasefire is. But we shouldn't give up on this chance. Last week in Egypt, European leaders may have been present, but they played a side part to Trump rather than playing an active role. The Middle East is part of our region, our neighborhood, but it doesn't seem to be part of our priorities. The Commission is not proposing a global strategy for the Middle East or a strategy that goes beyond tactical ad hoc crisis management. We need to ensure diplomacy and security that will support peace. We don't want to see punishment. We should put an end to any voice that is trying to invest in hate or trying to deny or reject the existence of others, whether that be Hamas or those in Israel who reject any possibility of coexistence. We want to support those who want to see peace, democracy, and mutual respect. The future must be built on peace, security, mutual recognition, and hope. Israel has to be safe, stable, democratic, and there must be a Palestinian state, two peoples living one next to the other, alongside each other. Europe has a history of war and of division, but also reconciliation, and so we have diplomatic responsibility to ensure that we actively contribute to strengthen all peace efforts. We should support the UN resolutions and moderate approaches and encourage regional cooperation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bardella, for PFE.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Amongst the roots in Jerusalem, we find the origins of the three major religions. There has been conflict there for centuries. Peace is something precious. The recent agreement under the aegis of President Trump is not a miracle, but an act of political courage become reality. It is a hesitant step forward, but a step forward nevertheless towards this peace that so many hope for. The release of those hostages who have lived in hell since 2023 is profound relief for the families in this conflict. But let's be clear, peace has to be built minute by minute and second by second. This fragile process, as well as the total disarmament of Hamas, means there has to be constant international support beyond just posturing. I want to welcome the courage of the American president. He accomplished what a lot of people thought was impossible in this very complicated Middle East. He reopened what is possible. France is a secular nation. We cannot be pushed to the sidelines of history or lost amongst the EU. An EU that some want to create into a superstate to speak on behalf of the nations. France needs to have an autonomous, free voice through his diplomatic work. France has made Macron has made France invisible, wanting to be everything and in the end being nothing. General de Gaulle said there is only the politics of reality, and so that is what we need to do, to act in a calmer, measured way and to give the French presence its place once again and to ensure that balance. Thank you.
Nächster Redner ist für die EKR-Fraktion der Kollege Procaccini.
The next speaker is Procaccini from the ECR group. Thank you, President. At the last plenary session, we welcomed joyously the end of the war in Gaza, the release of the hostages, and at long last, humanitarian aid being allowed into the Gaza Strip. But we weren't all as relieved, perhaps, as we said, as many colleagues said, because we had people who were being arrested on the boats going in. I think that we have to look at the Palestinian cause and look at the way in which the Palestinians themselves are considering this, because it's a very precarious situation now, and the focus of this is Hamas, who is holding the people of Gaza hostage. Now, on what side do you want to be? The left in Europe, is celebrating Hamas for shooting Palestinians who have collaborated with Israel. One by one was written on the social media site. They were taken as prisoners and shot. Well, compliments to them, pacifists, sir. How are we going to move forward under the Trump peace deal without the European and Arab states? Because stability and security are going to extend and cover the whole of the Middle East under this. So what we are thinking of now is a freezing of the line of conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Is this good news? Yes. Now, it may not be the same for all colleagues here, because we do feel there are people here who are not really pacifists, but who adore war. Now we have colleague Vartwoods.
Dank u wel, mevrouw de voorzitter.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, Madam Commissioner, yes, we have to celebrate the peace agreement and the release of hostages, but we also have to be very careful. This is just a very small step, and we've seen that both parties have already undermined this. We've seen that people are experiencing violence and famine. So here I want to appeal loud and clear. Please open all border crossings. Let the aid in and put an end to trade negotiations. Sanction all of those Israeli militants or anyone who has committed crimes. Put an end to weapons exports that make crimes of war possible. We need to invest in rebuilding Gaza. And colleagues, when we look towards Gaza, but we also have to remember the West Bank. In 2008 and 2023, thousands of projects have been financed by Europe. And despite all of this, we've seen a lot of reports about this from Belgium, from the VRT channel as well. In Flemish, we say, if you break it, you must pay for it. And so we have to put an end to friendly diplomacy. We finally have to start putting pressure on. I can count on Europe to finish Trump's works and to ensure that we have a two-state solution. Thank you.
Dankeschön für die Fraktion der Grünen.
Thank you very much. Now, Neumann for the Greens.
Dear colleagues, Donald Trump may get a ceasefire signed, but for sure he has neither the ability nor the patience to build lasting peace. His plan is riddled with flaws. No path for Palestinian self-determination, no timeline for Israel's full withdrawal, no agreement on disarming Hamas, no word on accountability for the crimes of the past 2 years. Trump wants the applause and counts on everyone else to deal with the messy reality and on the Gulf countries and Europe to pay the bill. But who says we just need to nod along? It's time for Europe to move from being the passive payer to using our leverage to finally break the cycle of rebuilding what will only be destroyed again. The hostages are free. May they and their families find the strength to heal. But for civilians in Gaza, little has changed. They still suffer from Israeli attacks, from Hamas violence, from starvation. The Arab states need to keep the pressure on Hamas. Europe needs to keep the focus on the Israeli government. Netanyahu still turns aid on and off at will. As long as food and medicine do not reach everyone, consequences from the suspension of the association agreements to sanctions need to be back on the table. And while the world watches Gaza, our attention needs to extend to the West Bank. Settler violence grows in an open attempt to undermine the two-state solutions. Palestinians have a right to their own state and to ownership of reconstruction. Europe was too divided to stop the war. Let us at least be united now to protect and nurture the fragile hope that remains.
Dankeschön.
Thank you very much. Now, Boylan for the Left Group.
It's Ron. 11 days ago, we welcomed the ceasefire, but since then, 153 tons of bombs have dropped on Gaza. 62 is the number of Israeli occupation force shooting incidents in the West Bank. 67,000 is the very conservative estimate for Palestinians killed. Unknown is the number under the rubble. 169,000 is the number of Palestinians injured. 4,000 is the number of children who have lost limbs. 154 is the number of children who have died from starvation. 355 is the number of bullets fired at Hind Rajab by the Israeli occupation forces. 1,722 is the number of health and aid workers murdered. 34 is the number of hospitals attacked. Almost 300 is the number of journalists and media workers murdered. 2 is the number of ICC arrest warrants for members of the Israeli government. 0 is the number of actions taken by the European Union. This ceasefire cannot be an excuse for the EU to sit on its hands. Now is the time for the EU to restore its credibility and to end its complicity in this genocide. There can be no peace without justice. There must be accountability for the lives behind these numbers. Their lives have to mean something. So please, EU, there must be accountability.
Dankeschön für die ESN-Fraktion.
Thank you very much. Stoyanov for the ESN Group now. Thank you, Madam President. This peace agreement concluded between Israel and Hamas and the freedom of the hostages has been achieved. However, we shouldn't sit on our laurels because effort is needed to continue this peace. So we need to base ourselves in the EU on a realistic approach. The reconstruction of Gaza and the West Bank should be completely transparent and our funds should be monitored. We won't know that the Palestinians are dependent on aid for their lives. The European Commission could be useful, provided it acts as an impartial mediator to help the Israelis and the Palestinians to create mutual trust. It can provide humanitarian aid and expertise without focusing on central aspects of the EU's foreign policy. There are a lot of people in the West Bank who are being threatened by settlers. And what we have to do is to work on this in such a way as we don't give up a discourse which now is characterized by hate and discrimination. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Und es folgt die Kollegin Bentele.
We have finished going around the table, and now we come on to Bentele.
Dear colleagues, what if Hamas refuses to lay down its arms? That's what I asked in the last plenary, referring to the frequently mentioned notion of High Representative Kallas that there is no military solution. And this is exactly the situation we face today. Hamas has released the living hostages and Israel has withdrawn to the agreed yellow line, enacted a ceasefire and released hundreds of prisoners. The next step should be the disarmament and withdrawal of Hamas from Gaza. Any guess who's not fulfilling its part? The moment Israel withdrew, Hamas fighters returned, executing civilians, rearming, attacking IDF positions. All the pressure must now be on Hamas and its main sponsors, Turkey and Qatar, to uphold the deal. My recommendation, travel the region instead of giving Hamas the illusion that Europe will help rebuild their terror state. There can be no European money for reconstruction as long as Hamas remains in power, full stop. There can be no vacuum either. The next diplomatic tasks are clear. Establish the peace board and an international oversight for Gaza. We need guarantors, verifiers of the ceasefire and credible, non-terror affiliated Palestinians to help form new governance structures. According to the UN declaration you signed, elections in the PA-controlled territories are due within a year. Time to accelerate the process. Please convey to the High Representative She is the EU's top diplomat. There are dozens urgent diplomatic tasks ahead, and in all of them, Israel must play a key role. So please, come up with new messages beyond sanctions, or the EU will still be marginalized.
Dankeschön. Als nächstes spricht der
Thank you very much. Sanchez Amor is next.
Gracias, Presidenta. I'm speaking Spanish. Hay un riesgo.
Thank you, President. There's a new risk with the Gaza conflict and the drop in public attention from the international audience. And this is a risk that we have to focus on. We shouldn't give up to the idea that, okay, the peace process is underway and it will yield results. Yes, this is not really a peace process yet. It's merely a ceasefire. And there have still been dozens of deaths. Of course, we also need to ensure that Israel allows humanitarian aid. They've let in 800 trucks, but we should have had 600 per day. And they can't get to the devastated north of the Gaza Strip. They don't just need food, but they also need essential services such as water and at least basic healthcare provision. There also needs to be account paid for crimes committed. And then what will happen? What message are we sending to Putin when, if there's to be a ceasefire in Ukraine, what will happen to Putin? This will once again undermine our credibility in the global south. So we may have a dilemma about the level of responsibility that we have in the Gaza Strip, but we shouldn't forget what Russia and Putin are doing as well. We need to ensure that we re-establish the full mandate and funding for UNRWA. No international agency should be excluded. In Gaza, there are a lot of new actors coming into play. But it's only the UNRWA who has 20,000 Palestinians on the ground who are expert in providing all types of public services and who can represent hope for the future of Palestine without Hamas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gal is next on my list.
Madam Chair, Madam Commissioner, 2 years after the terrorism of Hamas caused inhuman suffering for Israelis and Palestinians. Suffering can now end in the region. After 2 years, the hostages have now been released. This initiative of President Trump has this message. Diplomacy works when there is political will. It's not just a regional issue, it's a global turning point. But in spite of that, the European Union has played no role in this. A couple of weeks ago, the representative of the European Commission was speaking about sanctions against Israel in this room, while the preparations for the peace agreement were already underway. The European Union has thus weakened its capacity while anti-Semitism is on the rise in the streets of Western Europe. Anti-Israel incidents are not tolerable. I'm proud of Hungary, which is an island of safety for the Jewish community, as it has been demonstrated by the hosting of several events. The peace solution at the initiative of Trump has to be an incentive so that it becomes a reality in Ukraine as well after the Middle East. A potential Trump-Putin summit to be held in Budapest can be an opportunity for world peace. The European Union should adopt a constructive approach to that so that it is not on the subs bench anymore.
Mr. Huysen next.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, we have all seen it. Images from hostages coming home, the heartfelt embraces, the intense joy, people celebrating life. But we also saw other images, Gazans crouching, summarily executed by Hamas, and the frenzied crowds around them cheering death. It was chilling, and what a contrast. Once again, it is patently clear how evil Hamas's ideology is and how they still have many in Gaza in their grip. Therefore, President, it's important to focus on two important parts of the peace plan, disarming Hamas and then de-radicalizing Palestinian society. The European Union has played no clear role or meaningful role in the creation of the peace agreement. But now that we have the peace agreement, we can help with the implementation of it. And therefore, I would ask the Commission to do three things. First of all, to guarantee that no single European euro of tax money goes for the benefit of Hamas. Secondly, to demand that any incitements to hate and violence are removed from Palestinian school books. And then thirdly, with immediate effect, to withdraw the sanctions packet against Israel. If Israel sticks to the agreement, then there is no reason to go forward with the sanctions package. Thank you.
Thank
you very much. Mr. Guetta is next.
Inutile. It is said that it is no use to display our differences, but unfortunately it's really time to tell you, Mr. Trump, that your inconsistency is also responsible for what's happening in the Near East as well as Ukraine. We can't allow you to bluff your way back by a Putin who promises to Ukraine that it will be destroyed if it doesn't bow in submission. You can't betray Europe by abandoning the Ukrainians, and you don't even want to give them a single dollar. At least, if you don't want to do that, don't seal their destiny with the successor of Ivan the Terrible. And you're intending to bring eternal peace to the Near East? Stop. Yes, stop, Mr. Trump. Stop forgetting the West Bank. Stop saying any old thing about Hamas. Congratulated the day before yesterday for getting rid of the bad guys in Gaza, and today threatened by the troops being sent in again. This week, you're destroying all confidence in you, and therefore it's without you that we need to be and to act.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sundberg. Next.
Speaking Danish. Since
the peace agreement entered into force, nearly 100 Palestinians have been killed, and only half of the promised aid has been allowed to enter the country. The humanitarian conditions are terrible, as stated by the Commissioner. In the West Bank, settler violence is brutal. The number of roadblocks is booming. The Palestinian farmers' olive harvests is being destroyed, and people are being banished from their own country. Trump's 20-point plan doesn't solve 80 years of war and conflict. Of course, it's amazing that the living Israeli hostages have been released and that several hundred Palestinian prisoners have been given their freedom. But 1,000 men, women and children are still trapped in Israeli prisons, many without due process and rights, and most of them subjected to humiliation. One of those who should be released is Marwan Barghouti, a man who could potentially unite the Palestinians. And it's important that he and Palestine be given a chance to find a common path of freedom and peace. And the EU should push for this, just as we must support de-radicalization and demand that war criminals be held accountable for their war crimes. Gaza needs to be rebuilt, and we need a long-term political solution.
Next is Rima Hassan.
Dans un contexte colonial.
We are looking at a colonial context, which always talks about the peace for the colonizer, but not the people who have been colonized. We have those who are the architects of genocide and colonialism. They see Gaza as a way to expand ideologically and politically. Since the ceasefire has entered into force, it has been violated by Israel many times. 17 Palestinian victims. Tons of bombs fell on Gaza on Sunday. The sanctions proposed by the EU seem to be now going to be abandoned. The EU is simply giving Israel a carte blanche for its crimes which continue in Gaza and the West Bank. From Balfour to today, the Western nations have systematically made the mistake of looking at the future of Palestine without the Palestinians. With one hand, they sign peace agreements, the other, they provide weapons to Israel committing this genocide. From the Nakba, the Palestinians have never known what the free and civilized world called peace. Those people who have been colonialized have never been freed from the yoke of colonialism. Nothing here embraces the destiny of the Palestinian people and their determination. Peace for Palestine means an end to the impunity for Israel, an end to the complicity of the West, an end to apartheid, to genocide. You cannot have peace without justice. Peace imposed by imperialism is an invisible war, a war with no name, but it is present in every act of domination. This agreement is just one more sign of domination from the West over the Middle East. Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Dröse.
Frau Präsidentin.
Madam President, colleagues, the latest peace agreement in the Near East is a historic event. It wasn't prepared in Brussels, in the EU, in the Council, because the EU is bogged down in what's happening in Ukraine, in rearming themselves. But what's happening is Trump is creating peace. We need the will to peace, not just democracy. And what we're seeing is an EU who is outside, perhaps with the exception of Viktor Orban. We're hearing things from Macron and Merz, who want to celebrate in Egypt, while at the same time they're allowing anti-Jewish actions to take place in their own countries. What we have is an EU headed by von der Leyen, which is just a spectator in what's happening. What we need to do is fight for freedom and fight for coexistence. Thank you.
Next, Mrs. Roth-Nedalova.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, finally we have peace in this area. Even the Union wasn't able to arrive at an agreement or bring peace. We should try to be guarantors of the peace on the territory of Palestine. I'm happy that Slovak Republic accepted Palestine already in 1993 as a state, and we were able to send humanitarian aid there. 2 states are the only solution to this conflict, and now it's up to the Union to strive to achieve that. It is also our role to support the Palestinians, to make sure that humanitarian aids reach those who need it, to end the famine, and to prevent the creation of a new Afghanistan. And we can only do it by being there, support the people who are behind this peace initiative, even though it's Donald Trump, who perhaps we are not always fond of, but the United States were the only country who were able to bring the 2 countries to the negotiation table, and we hope that this agreement will be durable. It is a chance for everybody, and a chance to not forget that the civilians and journalists and everybody who died, they deserve justice. Thank you.
Dankeschön. Es spricht nun der Kollege Gahler.
Next is Mr. Gahler. Madam President, dear colleagues, thank you very much, Madam Commissioner, for an overview of what we could and will do as the EU. We have this 20-point peace plan. We have had the freeing of the hostages, and that was a great joy for their families and for Israel. And Palestinian prisoners released already. And withdrawal of Israeli troops to an agreed line. But we need to be clear that we need more details. How will Hamas give up their weapons? We need to have an international stabilization force. How will that be implemented? Will we have proper access for all of the humanitarian organizations, the UN, the Red Cross? So I think our executive needs to discuss this, remain in contact with the US. It is important we get responses to these questions. Thank you.
Dankeschön. Als nächster spricht die Kollegin.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Inser is next.
So much for peace deals, so much for ceasefire. The so-called peace deal, ceasefire plan, or name it whatever you want, is declared, but a few moments pass it and the story rewinds once again. In the last 2 days alone, Israeli airstrikes have resumed, and once more innocent Palestinians are paying the price, victims of crimes. The Israeli far-right government has proven it to not be partner for anything right now, not for peace, not for ceasefire, nor for justice or anything else. How much more must Israel do before European Union finally acts for real? There are no words left. Time and again, Israel commits war crimes, and not even humanitarian aid is still let into Gaza. Do not let us fool ourselves. That's the reality right now. While we continue to debate whether to suspend a mere fraction of our association agreement, suspend the entire EU-Israeli association agreement, impose a full arms embargo, sanction the entire Israeli government, recognize Palestine, and the claim that Israel's war is against Hamas is a lie. The claim still is a lie. In reality, both Israel and Hamas are terrorizing innocent Palestinians. Israel claims that innocent Palestinians are collaborating with Hamas. Hamas claims innocent Palestinians are collaborating with Israel. In reality, Israel and Hamas are each other's best friends. Leave innocent Palestinians alone. And let's talk about the West Bank. Hamas does not rule there, so why are Palestinians in the West Bank being punished? Simply for existing. Every settler in the West Bank and beyond lives in violation of international law. Sanction them all, not just the most violent ones. They live on stolen land stolen from the Palestinians. Those settlers who hold dual EU citizenship should lose the citizenship. And let's call violent settlers what they are, terrorists. Because they terrorize Palestinians every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, and every year. My friend Abu Hassan was one of their victims. What those settlers tried to do as the Israeli military stood by and watched is something no human being should ever have to endure. Do not misunderstand me. The initial step of releasing hostages on both sides were crucial, but much more must be done to put an end to the bloodshed that is taking place right now.
Danke. Nächster Redner ist der Kollege Tertsch.
Next is Mr. Tash.
Well, it seems that some people are getting really angry because there's a peace agreement. So, good morning, everybody. The heading of this debate is something I'm going to express. The recent peace agreement in the Middle East and the role of the European Union, it's called. But the European Union has been an obstacle. It's been ridiculous. No positive role. Absolutely none. Zero. Pedro Sanchez has been a direct collaborator with Hamas terrorism. And his dreadful decision to recognize the State of Palestine is witness to this. And we've seen a total breakdown in negotiations. And what we've seen is totally irresponsible, totally absurd. If there is a ceasefire at this juncture in Gaza and a peace agreement, it's thanks to everyone's favorite, Donald Trump. And instead of this, we've seen people who are allied with Hamas and manifestations, demonstrations in every single city of Europe. And we're going to pay for this very soon here in Europe.
Accept a blue card by colleague Al-Shakhlani. Mrs. Al-Shakhlani, number 10. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Dear colleague, do you claim that our demonstrators, our citizens who are outside demonstrating for peace, for human rights, for Palestinians are on the wrong side of history? Do you by any chance mean that the recognition of a Palestinian state is a big mistake? Something that I think is a debt we have to the Palestinians for the last 70 years. Do you mean for reals that when we demand justice for the over 60,000 people, Palestinians killed, 2,000 of them under the age of 1 year, that this is a Hamas propaganda, a call for human rights? Is that Hamas propaganda for you?
Thank you. Colleague Tertsch, 30 seconds. That was quick. Nächster Redner ist der Kollege Squarta.
Next, Mr. Squarta.
Onorevoli colleghi.
Colleagues. In the Middle East, we see genuine hope, not a dream, hope built on courage and thanks to Donald Trump's leadership and the determination of Giorgia Meloni, the only Italian woman in history has chosen realism over ideology. Courage won. People putting security and peace over propaganda. But now, what about Europe? We can't stand clapping on the sidelines. We have to be able to act and make sure that we count. We have to be there to be protagonists in the new situation, be there on the ground to ensure humanitarian aid and to help with the reconstruction. That's the only way that Europe can play the role that it should and be a force for peace, liberty and hope in the world.
Dankeschön. Es folgt nun der Kollege Andrews.
Next, Mr. Andrews.
President, Commissioner and colleagues, peace is not just the absence of war. A true peace delivers justice, freedom and accountability. A true peace, as we know in Ireland, takes decades of patience, of careful nurturing, of reconciliation and investment. It's notable that decommissioning of arms by terrorists in Ireland took more than a decade after the 1998 peace agreement. Last month, European leaders finally found their moral voice and began to see that they could influence global affairs. No one was more surprised than me to hear President von der Leyen talk about sanctions or Chancellor Merz bringing an end to arms supplies in certain circumstances and President Macron and others recognising the Palestinian state. So now the European Union must do three things. First, it must lead the humanitarian response, ensuring urgent access for all life-saving supplies to Gaza. Secondly, it must invest heavily in the political economy of reconciliation, including a major donor conference for reconstruction. And third, we need to use all diplomatic and political channels to make it clear that it is inevitable and unavoidable that sanctions and a full trade embargo will follow if Israel doesn't follow through with an end to the illegal occupation and a pathway to Palestinian self-determination. Thank you.
Dankeschön. Als nächstes spricht der Kollege Sartori.
Next, Mr. Sartori. Yesterday, the High Representative Kaja Kallas led us to understand that sanctions against Israel could be abandoned now that aid is coming into Gaza. Now, I think this is a mistake. We are not dealing with a ceasefire. Since the 10th of October, 97 dead, hundreds of tons of bombs dropped in just 1 day, as admitted by Netanyahu, and only 300 trucks instead of the 600 that were envisaged. How is this a ceasefire? How does this erase 2 years of genocide? You cannot erase European complicity. You, together with Netanyahu, are erasing Gaza from the map. How can we forget how famine has been weaponized? The journalists killed. Even if the weapons fall silent, we should have pushed forward sanctions and suspended the association agreement and support the Palestinian Authority. It's the only way we can get a fair solution with two states. Next is Mr. Botenga.
Merci, Madame la Commissaire, chers.
Thank you, Commissioner. Colleagues, Israel has killed over 70,000 Palestinians in Gaza. And with the wounded, that comes up to 200,000 people affected, about 10% of the Gazan population. Israel now occupies about half of the Gaza Strip. It's not that big to start with. It's about the distance from Brussels to Antwerp. And what do we hear now? It's time to ensure that the Palestinians de-arm because of Hamas, we need to de-radicalize Palestinians to be safe, to ensure security for Israel. Who needs more safety, the occupier or the occupied? That's the question, and you've picked the wrong answer. Congratulations, Madam Commissioner. 2 years of genocide, no measures taken. I think your whole commission should go home filled with shame. When Russia is causing this devastation in Ukraine, everyone wants Russia to pay the price. But when Israel destroys Gaza, nobody wants Israel to pay. No, Israelis are immune to this for one reason or another. But the reality is that for 2 years now, the European Union, European countries have been financing and arming a genocide. You should be ashamed for the rest of your lives.
Next is Mr. Nikolai Avelanos.
Η συμφωνία που επεξεργάστηκαν ο Τραμπ και ο Νετανιάχου.
Thank you very much. The agreement drawn up between Trump and Netanyahu and approved by the US and Israel serves their own imperialist projects. Their project is for a new Near East. What we are looking at is a piece of land with the Palestinians there who are having guns held to their heads, while the other side has caused a genocide, and Gaza is going to be turned into a protectorate. We are going to have a territorial entity here going back to 57 and Jerusalem. The return of refugees, the occupation of Israel has already violated the agreement 47 times, the ceasefire agreement. We're seeing 60,000 plus victims of genocide. And what we have to do is not stop. We've got to reinforce our solidarity. We've got to have huge demonstrations showing solidarity with this people against this project, because the Palestinians need to be able to free of occupation and have a future.
Conhecer a fragilidade do cessar-fogo não nega a necessidade da paz.
When it comes to this ceasefire, it does not mean that we have achieved peace. It doesn't negate the rights of Israel or Palestine to do more than survive. This is progress, but those rights never should have stopped existing. We have the role of the United Nations here, and we have the New York Declaration, which was approved in September, and the conference that was held then. Europe values life, and this value stopped existing in Gaza. We had the hostages who were imprisoned. We have the prisoners who were denied medication. It's very important that we have the right of existence for Israel, but without being complicit in genocide. We need to deal with what happened there without becoming terrorist sympathizers. Thank you. Next, Ms. Picerno.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, it's soon 30 years since the assassination of Isaac Rabin, and this should remind us of the courage of peace and how the times when that was considered the highest form of security, when dialogue is a political and moral duty. And now we've seen these so worrying fractures within the Mediterranean. Europe has to find this spirit. We have to turn to the Pact for the Mediterranean that's been signed thanks to the efforts by Commissioner Suica. That sets out the path for energy, cultural energy exchanges to build stability and to build shared development. And so in this framework, even the recent peace agreement can become a useful instrument if it's seen as a multilateral tool that is in line with international law. The Parliament passed a resolution in September, and that gives us a clear mandate to work for a just and inclusive peace based on respect and dignity for all peoples. And this is the commitment that we have to honour in the name of Rabin and his desire for peace.
Next, Mr. Tangier Correa.
Senhora Presidente, meus caros amigos, parece que a história não passa por este Parlamento. Parece que a história...
Colleagues, seems as though history only started on the 7th of October in the Near East. Something has bypassed us here. And we have to look, I think, to before the time when Israel attacked. What we're seeing is not a solution. This is something that we can't solve immediately. It has to be sorted out at the right time. And what we're seeing now is discussions going on with the United States and a very precarious ceasefire. This cannot be solved without peace and stability. It's very important to be aware of this. We need to realize in this Parliament and the Commission that the conflict has not come to an end because the Palestinians only have one aim, and that is to destroy the State of Israel.
I don't see Mr. Bay, so I will give the floor to Ms. Al-Shalani.
On my way here this morning, I was looking at my phone, and I had to see yet another Palestinian mother hug her kid, calling him to wake up from his death. Yet another mother, yet another parent had to bury their child. And what can the EU play for a role for these people? My answer would be is to make this short lives of these kids and their violent deaths matter. And how can we do that? Yes, we know that peace cannot be achieved only when justice is served. That's why the EU has to first stop the association agreement with Israel, because we cannot be associated with war criminals. Two, we have to support fully ICC and ICJ, because these war criminals have to stand in responsibility and end the impunity on both sides, Hamas and Israel. We have to stop the settler economy. We cannot have products from violent settlers, stolen land. We have to stop the land theft in the West Bank and the settler violence. And there is no other solution than the two-state solution, because Israelis owe it to the Palestinians, and the Palestinians, well, damn, deserve their own state now. Thank you.
Danke. Als nächster spricht die Kollegin Vieira.
Next is Mr. Vieira. Ms. Vieira, sorry.
A peace plan that circumvents international law, a ceasefire that has already been violated, killing dozens, humanitarian aid turned on and off using civilians as leverage, Palestinians having no say on who will lead Gaza in rebuilding what Israel has destroyed, impunity in the face of genocide. This is the reality in Gaza. And meanwhile, in the West Bank, the illegal occupation grows, subjecting millions of people to killing, torture, and displacement. Yes, much has changed in the past few weeks. A ceasefire agreement, the return of the hostages, more humanitarian aid come in. These are all crucial steps. But let us be clear, this is not peace and this is not justice. Colleagues, our credibility is on the line. What influence can we have with Russia, with any other state, if we don't stand by our values? We must uphold international law, and that means taking action. Suspend the association agreement, end all trade with illegal settlements, impose sanctions, and stand firmly behind the ICC and the ICJ. This is the moment to secure a path, a just and a lasting path that guarantees safety, freedom, and self-determination to Israelis and Palestinians alike.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Gorgiou.
Μόλις χτες το Ισραήλ σκότωσε 45 Παλαιστίνιους.
We're talking about this so-called peace plan. Well, yesterday we had Rafah closed, lots more people killed, genocide is continuing, humanitarian aid has not really started to arrive. We need to show responsibility here. The European Union was tragically absent over the past 2 years, and Donald Trump came up with a plan for peace, but you have to look at the nuances there. What are we going to do with the criminal Netanyahu? Is he going to remain free, etc.? And after this so-called agreement, a few crumbs of aid have gone to the Palestinians. We need to show courage. We need to be brave. And we need to speak with one voice and talk about the establishment of a Palestinian state. The next speaker is Sorel.
Dear colleagues, we need a pragmatic approach based on mutual security and based on the civilian population. That is what is needed. We need to move beyond the destructive cycle of reprisals. We need to have an international peacekeeping force under the mandate of the United Nations. Economic sanctions against Israel will not achieve anything. Europe, as the primary donor, cannot accept an Arab absence that will lead to the failure of any peace process. Peace means we have to have a coherent Western approach and an Arab coalition that take on a real role in reconstruction and security. Dear colleagues, what's at stake here is our link with civil societies, doctors, medicines, artists, entrepreneurs. They have the key to reconciliation. These people need to get international aid through verifiable mechanisms. Reconstruction should be a tool for emancipation and not dependence. Thank you very much.
Dankeschön. Es spricht nun der Kollege Salini.
Grazie, Presidente. Grazie.
Thank you, President. And first of all, thank you to the Commissioner, because as Madam Picerno said, that we have a pact for the Mediterranean that will be a key area for the political work that we need to do, particularly given this critical juncture in the Middle East that we see. This is a truce rather than a peace agreement, but it does have one significant asset, as I see it. You need to have a political courage to sign this kind of agreement. But we can't forget that there were some people who were absent. You have the fact that Qatar and Turkey were present, but Saudi Arabia, for example, was absent. So that calls questions about the role that, for example, organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood will have in the future. And some people are wondering, the peace agreement, have they eradicated Hamas? Are we going to have a type of Palestinian Donbass? No, we want to see two people and two states.
Thank you very much. Now, Temido, Ms. Temido. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think that the peace agreement has led to certain hope, but this is not really a peace agreement. It's a ceasefire. So I don't think it's time to celebrate. It's a time for European democracy to do its utmost to move things on. And this Parliament also needs to ensure that the September agreements are respected and that humanitarian aid can enter Gaza, that international aid can reach its target, and that the people there can work further. We also need to look at the West Bank. We need to stand firm against the further expansion of illegal settlements. We don't want Palestine to end up being a protectorate. We need to respect the principles of freedom. I think it's important that those who have been mentioned in the context of being held to account under international law should do so. Thank you.
Colleagues who want to come in.
So we've got the catch the eye. A number of people have...
A ceasefire and the release of hostages should be a cause of celebration. Yet, when I hear the debate in this chamber from the Liberals, from the Socialists, from the Greens, you seem even more infuriated, even more angry than when the war was prosecuted. Why is that? Is it your hatred towards the Trump administration that takes over, or is it that you have lost what you saw as a golden opportunity to align with Islamists and Hamas apologists in the West that has now come to an end? Please be happy. We have peace. And when we have peace, the first and foremost task for any European government should be how to plan the return of Palestinian refugees residing here in Europe. Every man and woman have a duty, when there is peace, to go back and build up their home country and be grateful for the many services they have gotten here in Europe, but willingly return to the country of Palestine that you have helped proclaiming. So please, I'm looking forward to see these plans, to see deportation starting, because of course we cannot keep refugees here that are no longer in fear of war and prosecution.
Colleague Vistisen, do you accept the blue card by colleague Insir? Please, 547.
Colleague, I have a simple question to you. What do you call when the bombs are falling down in an area, when civilians are being killed, when civilians are being slaughtered? What do you call it? Do you call it ceasefire? Do you call it peace? Or do you call it what it is, war?
Thank you. 30 seconds for the reply.
What I call it is that when parties in a ceasefire doesn't live up to the expectations, ceasefires cease. And luckily, the ceasefire have already now been re-established. What I call you is a Hamas apologist, a person who doesn't take a terrorist attack seriously and who always is ready to apologize to the most vicious and evil ideology we have on this planet, the radical Islamism of Hamas.
If I understood it correctly, you called a colleague apologist. I will submit that if this is still... I would like to remind you, I'll put it that way, that we owe each other a respectful demeanor here. Nächste Rednerin ist die Kollegin Joveva.
Next speaker is Ms. Joveva.
Commissioner, colleagues, for years, many of you sat here watching Gaza burn, debating, condemning, expressing concern, doing absolutely nothing. Watched a genocide and didn't dare to call its name, spoke of principles and delivered none. We failed the Palestinians, we failed the world, we failed the humanity. Recent peace agreement is the title of this debate. A peace for whom? Is there a ceasefire? Or is there, as Francesca Albanese said, you seize, I fire? The mutual hatred between far-right in Israel and Hamas feeds them both, while the innocent paid the price. The role of the EU also in the title. Where is the EU, indeed? Just yesterday, the Commission presented the new pact for the Mediterranean, preaching stability and security while blatantly favoring the aggressor and just symbolically addressing Palestine. Is that the role we want to play? Watching human rights, humans actually, being erased and the world burn? All violations of the agreement must mean sanctions, isolation, consequences. So just act. Better late than never, but never again this late.
Dankeschön. Next Redner.
Thank you very much. Ms. Scuderi is the next speaker. They destroyed what we've got inside it. They've destroyed all my house. They've destroyed everything. Gaza, 14 years old, said that. Palestinian life, everything that we've known has been destroyed. And they're saying that we've got peace, we've got a plan. But everything around us is just the same. We're occupied. Genocide in our houses and controlled by whom? The bombs continue to cause deaths. During the so-called truce, at least 8 Palestinian children have been killed by Israel. Palestine is occupied, and we need to see justice for the criminals who have perpetuated this. What Palestine needs is self-determination for its people. It what we're seeing is Netanyahu and the politicians exercising their power, and what peace means is just a continuation of oppression. We have been overwhelmingly absent, but what we need to look at now is international justice. We need to act on the sanctions which have been announced. We need to suspend our association agreement until you get real peace, because unless we share our responsibility and accept that you need two peoples and two states, we shall not be able to continue.
Micro 839, please.
Ce conflit est un conflit extrêmement grave qui nous...
This is a very serious conflict that concerns all of us. Why do you say nothing of the Palestinians who are being assassinated in a very violent way by Hamas?
C'è un punto che
This is a point that we do agree with. We have to, of course, ensure that Hamas respects its responsibility, but nobody has talked about the responsibility of a genocidal government. And nobody has tried to ensure that they share their burden of responsibility, because you can't have a peace if you have a government do what it has done and doesn't shoulder its responsibility. Sorry.
Danke. Spricht nun der Kollege Flanagan.
Now, Mr. Flanagan.
So, what is the role of the EU in bringing about peace in the Middle East? Firstly, we must recognise the EU role in facilitating a genocide. We must accept that Ursula von der Leyen's unconditional support for Israel emboldened them in committing the most horrific war crimes. We must accept the EU's refusal to suspend our trade agreement with Israel has helped them bankroll a genocide. We must accept that in spite of Israel telling us they would do exactly what they have done, Germany continued to supply them with weapons until 2 months ago. So now the EU must, to make up for this, recognise the Palestinian state, end all trade with Israel until they remove their war machine from Gaza. The EU must also demand that Israel pay for the reconstruction of Gaza, because the reality is there will be no peace without justice, and there will be no justice until Gaza is reconstructed and Israel pays for it. Thank you very much.
Danke. Nächste Rednerin ist die Kollegin Zovko.
Our next speaker is Ms. Zovko.
Madam President, Madam Commissioner, the announcement of an agreement on the Gaza peace plan proposed by President Trump came as a relief. Yet, lasting peace requires clear commitment from all sides to address the real obstacles. As long as Hamas remains the sole security authority in Gaza, reconstruction and a genuine peace will remain out of reach. Its action continued to undermine the security of both Israelis and Palestinians. The EU must show great determination to contribute to the success of the President Trump's peace plan with a view to facilitating the two-state solutions and a peaceful coexistence. Coordination with international partners will be key to ensuring that the current opportunity is not wasted. We must seize this chance to help bring peace to a region torn apart by decades of conflict and violence. Thank you very much.
Dankeschön. Nächster Redner ist der Kollege.
Thank you very much. Next we have Mr. Nemec.
Dear colleagues, the eyes of the world must not turn from the Palestine. The promise of the ceasefire in Gaza has been broken at least 80 times at a cost of lives, hopes, and in law itself. We need more than pauses in violence. We need an end of the occupation and all hostilities, including in the West Bank. Those responsible for the genocide and war crimes must be brought to justice in line with the international law. Accountability is non-negotiable. Sanction must be imposed. Lasting and just peace can only be built on the foundation of justice. Lasting and just peace can only be built on the foundation of justice. As I said, urgent humanitarian must flow. The crossing must be open and the medical workers and journalists protected. We must protect the very lifeline that keeps children alive and gives families hope, such as UNRWA. Let us choose courage over cruelty, law over impunity, and a future where every child, Israeli and Palestine, can grow up free from fear. Time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Kelleher.
From the recent ceasefire, calling it a peace process may be very ambitious, but we must welcome the fact that the massive attacks on Gaza have stopped. But we also have to accept that humanitarian aid has to flow immediately, unhindered, into Gaza. We also need to see international observation and international peacekeeping force deployed rapidly to ensure that there's no further breaches from a military perspective. In any peace process, accountability is critically important in the longer term. But in the immediate term, what is significantly at issue is the recognition of Palestine as a state. Because clearly, peace without hope will not last very long. I welcome this change and the slight change in tone in many European actors, particularly the Commission itself and some of the major European countries, around the need to support a two-state solution. But if we are to see the European Union play a role in the EU, it must play a positive role. It must not be afraid to say to Israel that the trade association agreement will be suspended if they do not honour its full commitments in terms of the ceasefire, promoting the peace plan, allowing humanitarian aid flow, and, as importantly, the longer-term acceptance of a two-state solution.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Ms. Levine.
Madam President, we had on the 10th of October a ceasefire in Gaza. These are people that experienced hell on earth for the last 2 years, but this ceasefire hasn't been as we thought. Hundreds have been injured since then. 11 people killed in the same family, a number of them children, when a bus was hit by an Israeli weapon. We really need to get aid to these civilians, which is still being stopped. It is completely unacceptable. This is not peace. This is not security. The ceasefire has to be respected and the EU has to act. Words are not enough. We have to put pressure on Israel so civilians can start to rebuild their lives. We need to get aid. We need to have sanctions in place. And Israel has to be economically responsible for rebuilding Gaza. A two-state solution is the only option, and the Palestinians must have self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Oliveira is next. Thank you very much, President. Thank you, Commissioner Suiva. The announcement of the ceasefire comes too late. It comes after 2 years of genocide and courageous resistance of the Palestinian people, and we have seen an international movement of solidarity with Palestine. Over the past few days, we have noted that the Israeli government has continued with its policy of occupation, and that the announced agreement which we have at the moment really has to show the way to a ceasefire and humanitarian aid. Israel continues to hold this up, to continue the blockade, and what we need is a total withdrawal of Israel from the Gaza Strip and also from the West Bank. We need to show solidarity towards the creation of a Palestinian state and ensure that we in the EU work as we should towards stopping aggression against the Palestinians. Thank you very much, Mr.
To oczekiwany krok. the agreement between Israel and Hamas is a long-awaited step towards stability. Its durability depends on the accountability of the parties, on the active engagement of the entire international community, including the EU. However, they are not the only primary players in the Middle East. Iran is a regime which threatens not just the region, but also exports terrorism. The sale to Russia of lethal Shahed drones and licenses for their mass production in Russia during the aggression against Ukraine is a direct confirmation of the co-responsibility for the crimes. In the British Parliament, the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski, participated in the opening of an exhibition presenting Shahed 136 drone, which was used against Ukraine. No one in Europe can doubt what the role of Tehran is in the support for Moscow. Ukraine has the right to destroy Russian, Iranian death factories using long-range cruise missiles. We need to save the lives of Ukrainian civilians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Ms. Riddell.
Colleagues, we are concerned about the fragility of the ceasefire in Gaza. Over the weekend, more Palestinians were killed, humanitarian aid was blocked, and Israeli soldiers were also killed. We see that a child under the age of 11 has been killed in Gaza by Israeli fire. So we can't count on the Israeli government or Hamas or on Trump to ensure that we have a fair, sustainable peace. That's why it's key to remain firm and lucid that we have to double down on our efforts. The EU cannot suspend the association agreement between the EU and Israel, or not to sanction those who have encouraged settlements in Palestine. We have to ensure that criminals are properly judged. We now have to protect those from both Israeli and Palestinian civil society who represent hope for the future, because they work constantly for a viable peace and for justice. There's a very worrying project to try to deprive Israeli organisations of funding, and the Parliament should speak out against this. Now is the time to speak in favour of peace and justice.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Lopatka.
There is a chance for peace in the Middle East, but not more. Thanks to President Trump, there is significant momentum with a ceasefire and hostage exchange deal, as well as commitments to humanitarian access and reconstruction in Gaza. At the same time, the situation remains extremely fragile. Violations of the truce have already occurred, and the core issues, the full disarmament of Hamas, the long-term governance of Gaza, and a credible two-state solution are still unresolved. And the EU has to remain firm, most urgently for the full disarmament of the terrorist organization Hamas and the end of their rule over Gaza. We must also continue working towards a two-state solution, which is necessary for a viable Palestinian state alongside a secure Israel. In all areas, we must work with the Arab world. A long-lasting solution is only possible with their support. The Abraham Accords shows the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The ceasefire agreement reached recently should not be in vain. It must be the end of the illegal occupation and the implementation of the two-state solution. The EU is not a humanitarian agency only. The EU must play its very important role to ensure, ultimately, that there shouldn't be another colony, but actually ensure that Palestine has the right for self-determination. Any future arrangement must put the Palestinian Authority at the center of the Palestine governance. The Trump agreement, the so-called Trump agreement, must be seen in light of the two-state solution and in light of the ICJ law as well. We have to be a bastion of justice, peace, and to protect human rights. And to achieve this, we must make sure that as soon as possible, more member states acknowledge Palestine as a state. This is the only way we can reach a two-state solution where two states live peacefully and in harmony next to each other. Thank you.
Fru kommissionär, I helgen bröt Hamas vapen.
Over the weekend, Hamas broke the ceasefire when they killed 2 Israeli soldiers. They haven't released the remaining dead hostages, and Hamas have not de-armed. Instead, they are regrouping and killing in cold blood rival factions. It is time to draw a line. We cannot have taxpayers' money going in aid to finance terror through UNRWA. Rebuilding Gaza goes hand in hand with de-radicalisation. We cannot continue to welcome these faltering steps towards peace and continue with business as usual, hoping for a different outcome. The EU's Middle Eastern policy seems to be based on condemning the region's only democracy, and it's reached its limit. Now we need to build peace, not extremism. It is time to save lives. Hamas cannot have any influence in the Palestinian people's future. They're not going to willingly give up their weapons. So the question isn't what Hamas is going to do, but what we are willing to do about it. Thank you.
Dear colleague, do I accept, I have 2 blue cards? No? Okay. Dann ist der nächste Redner der Kollege Andriukaitis.
Then our next speaker is Mr. Andriukaitis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Commissioner. Indeed, we fully understand that this is a ceasefire and the prospects for peace are fragile and complex. That is why the European Commission and the EU member states must be involved in broad diplomatic efforts and a broad humanitarian mission. We should participate in the reconstruction of Gaza, and we need to coordinate processes on both sides to prevent new conflicts. We need to make all possible efforts to make sure that the EU member states recognize the State of Palestine and do it as soon as possible. It is obvious that we need to prosecute all the criminals, all the war criminals. This is an obligation for us. We do have certain commitments with regard to the International Criminal Court, and we can't close our eyes to what has been done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Goma. Madam President, dear colleagues, Commissioner, the European Union has never really had the means to intervene in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. What we've seen is the reality taken by the Americans. The peace agreement is symbolic. It has no effect. It's not protecting a civilian population, and it's not going to achieve peace. In the meantime, the terror of Hamas is continuing. They're continuing to execute their own people. We also have seen, of course, the hostages released. We've seen bodies released as well. But this is not the end of it. The European Union wants to suspend the association agreement. It wants to impose sanctions, but really it's contradicting itself, because terrorism is not confined to Gaza. It is circulating. It is inspired by many, particularly by radical speech of the Muslim Brotherhood and also by others. We have to look at these threats and what we can do to combat them in the EU. What we need to do is to mobilize our diplomats to define a credible position and do play our role in defining a proper peace in Europe.
300.
Dankeschön, Frau Präsidentin. Dankeschön.
Thank you very much.
Just wait. You have it? Okay. Dankeschön, Frau Präsidentin.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you, colleagues, for allowing me to speak. You emphasized the fact just now that Hamas is violating the ceasefire agreement and bringing terror to Israel and Palestine. I'd like to ask you a question, whether you have noted that the Near East conflict is much longer than the time that Hamas has been around. Have you noted that? Could you please take note of the fact that the right to self-determination of the Palestinians is decisive if we are going to achieve peace and stop this unending conflict?
Reply, please.
Merci, cher collègue, pour votre...
Thank you, colleague, for your question. It seems to me that before we recognize the State of Palestine, the Palestinians have to recognize the State of Israel. Hamas continues to kill its opponents. We've seen images of this, and this is proven. Hamas is a terrorist movement which continues to sow terror and to kill its opponents. The next speaker is Mr. Mavridis.
Thank you, President. The recent peace conference for the Middle East brought hope for peace, but took place without the European Union. If the EU wants to be a global player, we cannot be absent from shaping peace and stability in a region that lies in our immediate neighborhood and is of strategic importance, as confessed by the Commissioner. Strengthening our geopolitical role is essential for our future. With challenges ahead, we should support and invest in this agreement as a long-due chance for stability and prosperity for the Middle East. Cyprus was at the conference. As the EU member state closest to the region, with traditional excellent relations with key countries there, stands ready once again to contribute by presenting a complementary plan directed towards security, humanitarian aid, and reconstruction. This complementary plan received a very warm welcome by the Mid-9 conference yesterday, and I strongly believe that deserves more attention and support by the European Commission.
Paldies. Thank you very much. So, next speaker, Walter Bekke. Floor is yours.
Dank u wel, voorzitter, mevrouw de commissaris.
Thank you, President, Madam Commissioner, colleagues. The agreement and release of hostages from Gaza is good, but we also see how fragile hope is and how difficult it is to have a ceasefire in reality. With merely putting down weapons without any real hope for sustainable peace is difficult. So this is where Europe has to play a role. They have to play a leading role in providing support, aid, to support rebuilding of Gaza, to ensure that we have sanctuary packages for Hamas and in Israel, and to play a role in diplomacy. Madam Commissioner, the new Mediterranean Pact can help Europe to play this role, but only with clear, practical, concrete measures. Colleagues, we cannot be absent in the implementation of this agreement and throughout events in the Middle East.
Muro, for 1 minute, please.
President, 8 days have passed since the peace agreement for Gaza was signed. And yet the Israeli government has already killed more than 100 Palestinians and injured 80 more. The Israeli government has not fulfilled fully the agreement from the beginning. We also condemn any breach of the ceasefire by Hamas. The situation is very fragile. We ask the Commission to closely monitor the situation and keep sanctioning the Israeli government, who must be held accountable for its actions in Gaza and in the West Bank, where many civilians continue to be killed and are subject to the violence of the settlers. We hope that this ceasefire can bring peace and the possibility of establishing the two-state solutions with the 67 borders. For that to happen, the Rafah crossing must be opened and humanitarian aid properly delivered. We call for journalists to be allowed into Gaza and conditional support to the vital role of UNRWA. We need to focus now on the day after reconstruction, a future government elected by the Palestinians, a horizon of hope, peace and security for Palestine and Israel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Next speaker, Ingeborg Terlaak, for 1 minute, please.
Thank you, President. Dear colleagues, Commissioner, a fragile peace deal and a vulnerable situation. That's the situation in the Middle East. We have to be hopeful, but at the same time, we have to be concerned over the fact that this is only 10 days old and already is coming under pressure. The role of Europe was very limited. The two-state solution has to be supported, but we need a concrete approach that will ensure Europe can play a role. The EU must continue to put up on pressure to ensure that we see humanitarian aid. Hamas must put an end to attacks, and in the long term, we have to ensure that we look towards a two-state solution. But Hamas can have no role in a future government. A new government must be chosen by free elections, and the EU has to play a role for sustainable peace. Thank you.
Speaker Marco Tarquinio, for 1 minute, please.
Grazie. Thank you, President. Yes, colleagues, Madam Commissioner, in Gaza we have a very fragile ceasefire, and certainly Hamas has been much weakened. But where is real peace? We need to all work to develop peace. We need patience, and we need to use an old Greek word, parousia, the bare force of truth. We need to involve Jordan, and we need to ensure that what Netanyahu is doing does not continue. We see that there is a lot of suffocation, and the people whom we see out in Europe are people whom we're listening to, because they want the respect of international law, the self-determination of Palestine, the freedom, as has been asked for in this chamber, of Palestinians. And that is the road that we need to take.
For 1 minute, please.
The late John Hume, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for helping to broker the Good Friday Agreement, once said that we must spill sweat and not blood to bring about a brighter future. Just 2 weeks ago, we celebrated the ceasefire deal brokered by President Trump. Last weekend's events showed just how fragile it is. There is a narrow path to lasting peace in Gaza. It will require enormous restraint from both Israel and Hamas. It will require international partners to apply pressure on them to do so, and to hold each accountable for breaches like those over the weekend. It will require the inclusion of democratic actors like the EU and UN to help deliver a surge of aid to Gaza, to set up systems of governance and policing, and to create a credible process towards a two-state solution. There is a path to peace, but all sides, us included, must now spill sweat, not more blood.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Dimitris Tsiodras, for 1.5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Η Μέση Ανατολή ήταν και παραμένει μία από τις πιο...
The Middle East remains one of the tensest areas in the world. It is in our region, it's in our neighborhood, but the role of protagonist has been taken on by the United States. We have each member state within the EU following their own policy. There isn't a unified voice. The ceasefire is a first step, But there is still a long road ahead before there is a solution for the Middle East that will allow Israel to live in security and that will allow a Palestinian state to be created. The EU needs to develop its own policy, its own vision. We need to develop a framework and have a policy within which the member states feel that they have European borders. If we do not unite our forces, we will simply be spectators in this situation that will be led by others. I hope that this will not be the case. I hope we will be able to unite our efforts and develop our own policy. Thank you.
For 1 minute, please.
Mes chers collègues,
Colleagues, of course, we can welcome the progress made by Donald Trump in the Middle East. Significant progress for peace, release of hostages, and a fragile ceasefire, but one that nonetheless is real. Of course, we should also be concerned that Europe was totally absent when the Middle East lies at our doors, and we share the same background in our civilization. The fight against Islamism, Daesh, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, this is the fight that we need to fight and we need to win in the Middle East and on European soil. The far left, members of the European Parliament from the far left who took part in the flotilla to Gaza are a shame upon our Parliament and our nations and Europe because of the fact that they are in cahoots with terrorism, with Hamas. We shouldn't forget the Christians in the Middle East either. They have been forgotten in this conflict. In the south of Lebanon, there are Christian villages that have been entirely destroyed in this conflict. So we should be supporting Lebanon as well.
Thank you very much. Now, colleagues, we have a catch-the-eye procedure. I have 8 speakers. I will give the floor to everybody, but please keep 1 minute. First one, Juan Fernando Lopez Aguilar.
Thank you, President. The
Sharm el-Sheikh agreement is not a peace agreement. It is committed to neutralizing Hamas terrorism. Yes, there has been an exchange of hostages and prisoners, but it does not at all guarantee that we reach a solution, a two-state solution, so that both can live with secure frontiers and mutually recognize each other. We've got occupied territory in the West Bank, and when we are talking about the role of the EU here in this debate, I think that the European Union should actually comply with its commitments. It should suspend the association agreement with Israel. It should follow the resolution which was adopted by this chamber. And in addition, it should sanction the ministers and those who are the colonists. And it should also pursue those who are responsible for war crimes which have been carried out in Gaza. No more impunity.
Aguirre Goitia Martinez, floor is yours.
Gracias, President.
Thank you very much, President. We have seen how fragile this peace process is. It is the time to work hard, to do it discreetly. We have people that want to destabilize the situation. We must ensure that does not happen. We should be very clear. There are a lot of conflicting interests here in this peace process, and it makes things very difficult. So we need to remain on track. Our efforts should be focused on complementing this agreement, stabilizing the situation, ensuring that aid and the basic needs of the Palestinian population are met. We really need to focus our efforts on the fact that nobody impedes us moving forward towards a lasting peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Jean-Marcin Siondra, for yours.
Gracias, Presidente. Señora Comisaria.
Thank you, President. Commissioner, let's say the truth. Trump's victory is a new imperial victory built on the backs of Palestinians. Israel signed a ceasefire and then the very next day bombed Gaza. And there have been more bombings, over 100 deaths. Israel won't allow in humanitarian aid. It stopped it coming in on already the third day. One of the Israeli ministers said that there could be illegal settlements built on the fourth day of the agreement. Do you really think Israel's going to withdraw from Gaza? Does anyone think that Israel is really going to stop its ethnic cleansing program, its racial profiling? Israel isn't going to stop until the United States and the US stop supporting it. They are not going to stop doing the same as we saw under Hitler's Germany.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, President. In 1 week after the ceasefire, Israel has violated it more than 50 times. It's continued killing and massacring. It's continued with its colonization projects. And the European Union is still not reacting. This is not a peace plan, and the EU knows that. It's not even a ceasefire. It's a perfect strategy to continue with the second phase of genocide. And you're just looking on. You're making excuses. There's no peace with bombs. There's no justice if you have bombs. We have to recognize our responsibilities here. Commissioner, where are the measures which are presented by von der Leyen in this parliament? Where are the sanctions? Where is the suspension? Where are the consequences? We've been waiting for almost a month and nothing's happened. Zero. And you've done absolutely nothing at all. People don't believe in you at all.
Speaker Lukas Zipper.
Liebe Menschen Europas, liebe Menschen in
People of Europe, of Israel, of Palestine, peace. We see rockets still being fired, artillery being fired. We're talking about peace between people who are still waiting for dead hostages to be returned, peace between war criminals and terrorism, people wanted by The Hague. Peace. What can the role of the EU be here? We can be an example for a peace that could last generations. A two-state solution will not be enough. The wounds are too great for these two states to exist peacefully side by side. The EU is a model that could also work in the Middle East. Shared competences, common interests, valuing the diversity of the people. Perhaps I sound naive, but I do believe in peace. Thank you.
Next speaker, Katrin Langenzipen.
Ich werde Deutsch sprechen. Frau Kommissarin, wir haben ja heute den Nahen Osten.
I'm going to speak German. We have the Near East on our agenda today. Gaza and Israel really does merit a debate that's quite justified, but we should also cast an eye on Syria. That is a neighboring state of Israel. And Israel is invading Syria at the moment. Since summer this year, the region of Soweto, where the Druze live, has been under occupation. People are really suffering. We've heard about murders. We've heard about killings. When we're looking at what is happening in Syria, we're also looking at what is happening to the Christians. 40 years ago, Bashar al-Assad came to power and we rolled out the red carpet. We said this is a new ruler. This is going to be a renewal for Syria. But what's happening now? 10 months ago, we got a new president, a young president. We rolled out the red carpet as well, hoping that things would get better. I do hope that in 25 years' time, we're not going to be able to say that we were guilty once again.
In a bit time. Next speaker, Grzegorz Braun.
There is no peace process in the Middle East. We only have normalization of genocide. Israeli leaders, generals, rabbis, ministers keep referring to Palestinians as non-humans. They keep bombarding everybody around. So let's move the overtone window a bit. Let's remind that the very existence of the Jewish state located in Palestine was voted over by the United Nations in the 40s. Let's vote again. Let's vote it over that the experiment failed. And if the two-state solution could be taken under account, as far as I'm concerned, only in case we locate that other state somewhere over the Hudson or...
Thank you very much. As I told, we have to keep everybody in the same line. Next speaker and last speaker in KGI, Rainer von Landshut.
We are Europe. We should speak with one voice globally, especially when the topic is difficult. We should defend international law, even when it interferes with our interests. And we should celebrate peace, no matter who helped achieve it. However, the ceasefire has already been violated and this deal is incomplete. So, what can we do to help turn an incomplete ceasefire into a lasting peace? Well, for peace, the root causes of the conflict need to be addressed, with Palestinians at the table. And peace requires justice. That means instead of standing ovations for Netanyahu, we bring him, Hamas terrorists and other war criminals before the International Criminal Court. And it means rebuilding Palestine and supporting an independent, democratic Palestinian state. And we, Europe, can contribute to making that happen. Let's start with pressure on the Israeli government to let humanitarian aid reach Gaza.
Thank you, colleagues. We are closing KHDI procedure, and now I would like to ask to take floor for the Commission. Commissioner Suita, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I was listening carefully to all your interventions, but I can agree with the last speaker saying, yes, I agree that we should speak with one voice, but let us clarify, first of all. Everybody was mentioning the European Union. What is the European Union? They have to be, all of us are aware, European Parliament is very important, but there is Commission, which I represent here today, but there is also European Council. So there is European Council. Yesterday I was present in the Foreign Affairs Council together with the HRVP Kaja Kallas, and if I have enough time, I will try to tell you what is the summary of the discussion in the Council, just to be on the safe side. So all of the ministers insisted on the enhanced role of the EU and that we need to have a role in the future peace plan and reconstruction effort. It was agreed to ensure that more humanitarian aid and access to NGOs as well as journalists to Gaza. Both missions, CSDP missions, need to be properly utilized, and it needs to be seen how to enhance their role. As the European Union is the main supporter of the two-state solution, they stress that it is up to the European Union to keep the Palestinian Authority alive, while there remains a need to support and push their reform efforts, which I said in my introductory remarks. In the dialogue with Israel, it needs to be stressed that Israel should not undermine the Palestinian Authority, notably linked to withheld tax revenues. Sanctions linked to Hamas are on the table, while restrictive measures against Israel will not be removed but kept on the table for now. These could be used either for NGOs, for media access, or to push for tax revenues. Lastly, the European Union will look into how to use its leverage, how to be part of the Board of Peace, and the European Union will continue diplomatic efforts with all sides. So everybody is doing what is under the remittance of our role. And now, before my concluding remarks, I will try to reply to some of your questions which were which were so clear. On Syria, although it's not the topic today, but I have to reply to Madame Langensippen. I was there 3 months or 4 months ago, spoke with different components. I'm still in contact with different components of the society, not only with the government. My first meeting was with the civil society organizations, so we heard both sides. It's not only about the government, so we are very cautious, just to let you know, but at the same time we have to assist them, we have to help them, and the new opportunity will be Days of Dialogue, which are organized on the 15th of November in Damascus and in some other cities in Syria. So we are trying our best, but it's not easy. Sorry, this was not the topic, but just everything is connected with the Middle East. On supporting peace initiatives, I agree. Peace remains to be rebuilt, all of us know. While the Commission, or to be built because there was no peace, while the Commission suspended our bilateral support, to Israel, this is within our remittance, and we suspended this. But at the same time, we continued working with the Israeli civil society. Just to understand, we allocated 10 million for 2021-2024 and the NDK program, and 5 million for 2025 to 2027 is in the pipeline now for support peace-building initiatives via Israel and Palestine civil society organizations. On Hamas, we have to be clear. As I emphasized here on the 7th October, no role for Hamas in future of Gaza, and we need a strong Palestinian Authority. We don't need to repeat, all of you. I hope all of you agree on this here. Hamas has been on the terror list, as all of us know, since 2001, with a dedicated sanctions regime. The Commission implements rigorous safeguards to ensure that no person or entity receives EU funding if they are involved in criminal and unethical practice, including terrorist financing and terrorist offenses. We use our Pegasus program there. It's under my remittance in DG MENA, so this is what we are following closely. Someone asked when is Middle East strategy, when it will come out. It is part of my mission letter to work on the Middle East strategy together with the HRVP, but as you know, first we have to try to solve the situation on the ground. So we are acting already and setting the base for peace through support to Palestinian Authority. And all of you know that our actions in the Middle East speak loudly. We stand for peace. I don't see anyone who is not in favor. We stand for stability, and we stand for Palestinian and Israeli children. We gave 1.6 billion euro to the Palestinian Authority for this year, next year, and 2027. We gave 1 billion euro to Lebanon. This is about Middle East strategy. We gave 2.5 billion to Syria, in the course of time. And we gave 500, at this moment, 500 million to Jordan. So we are acting now before the Middle East strategy is on the table, because it's only the document. And this brings stability. Elements of future on the Middle East strategy, of course, first of all, consolidating durable stability, supporting inclusive democracy in Syria and Lebanon, which is connected. Of course, Gaza reconstruction will be a priority. And of course, we have to, as I already said, we have to strengthen EU missions on the ground. On only a few words on sanctions. As you know, we will regularly assess how the situation evolves both in Gaza and West Bank, and we will report in relevant council formations on this. In Gaza, as the first phase of the ceasefire has been agreed, the second phase will be critical. We all of you are prudent, you know, and of course it will be critical to lead to permanent ceasefire and to offer guarantees or security and governance in Gaza. So details on the second phase are not clear yet. This is something which I have to say here. Something which is very important for the Palestinian Authority to, we urge Israel to release the clearance revenues collected from April 2025 by Israel and due to the Palestinian Authority. It's ownership of the Palestinians. They owe this money to them. So this is something which we urge them. Also the continuation of correspondent banking services and the issue of excess Israeli shekels. Just to make you aware, if we were not the biggest payers for the Palestinian Authority, they wouldn't have survived. Just to understand, it is what the European Commission is doing at the moment. As I said, when you mention the European Union, it's all of us. So we have to, as you said, to speak with one voice, which is not the case at the moment, but we are closing and coming closer to consensus. I think since I was, this is the reason why I read this, my conclusions from the Foreign Affairs Council. To finish with closing remarks, I know that I exceeded my time, but since the topic is very important, I'm trying to reply to all of your questions. So, want to underline, and I think all of us agree, European Union is ready to have a strong role to play along the principles of the US peace plan. We are ready, so we will see how we will be. We are ready to support the Gaza recovery and reconstruction, and we know that it will require enormous international effort with a strong coordination among partners. What we would like to do with this 20 points plan, continue the reform of the Palestinian Authority, support the recovery and reconstruction of Gaza, ensure a neutral third-party presence at the Rafah crossing and with Egypt, support the capacity of a future international stabilization force, ensure Palestinian governance from day one, and we will mobilize all relevant Commission tools at our disposal. This is and this is to recall President von der Leyen's State of the Union speech when she announced support package for Gaza. We haven't forgot this. As mentioned in my introduction, we will set up Palestine donor group, and the first meeting is convened for the 20th of November in the margins or on the eve, I don't know now at the moment exactly, of the November Foreign Affairs Council. So the objective is to have EU-led Palestine donor group together like-minded partners, donors and so on. I don't want to expand on this because I already said on this. It will allow for discussions on the future engagement of Gaza, and we also invite Israel to join us because without them we cannot have a lasting stability, and this is something which we have to admit, unfortunately, but this is the truth. In the meanwhile, we continue to emphasize the necessity of urgent humanitarian aid delivery, and this is what my colleague Labib is working on. So, achieving demilitarization and the transitional governance will be vital and will require careful coordination of the engagement of all stakeholders. Who will convince Hamas? Let's talk about it. They should be convinced to lay down the arms. We don't want to use military force, so this is important to convince them to lay down the arms. European Union stands ready we as a Commission, but also, I hope, all components of the European Union stand ready to contribute to this effort. We will continue supporting two-state solution, and this is what is our long-standing goal. We will continue to support unity of the West Bank and Gaza, and we want a reformed Palestine or Palestinian Authority to play a central role in the revival of Gaza. To conclude, the recovery and reconstruction of the Strip must be a Palestinian-led process, and this is what we are aiming at. Once again, thank you for all your engagement this morning, but not only this morning, but all the time. European Union is ready to work with partners to provide support, and we will allocate a dedicated support package for Gaza's recovery and reconstruction. This is part of my mission letter, so thank you for all your support, and let's continue working together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for the substantive reply to our MEPs. And colleagues, we are closing debate on this point in agenda. Nākamais darba kārtības punkts, komisijas paziņojums.
And now we move on to the next debate, which is a Commission statement on changing security landscape and the role of police at the heart of the EU's internal security strategy.
And Commissioner Brunner, when you are ready, you can take the floor. You are ready? Yeah, please. Come, take the floor.
Okay, this sounds much better, at least for me. I don't know about whether that's the same for you, but we'll see in a couple of minutes. No, honourable members, good morning, everyone.